Hello everybody, this is Mr. Rob, and today we are going to simulate the college football playoff and figure out who EA Sports College Football 25 thinks is going to win the national championship. As we'll go through all the games, we'll simcast all of them and see who comes out victorious in the 12-team bracket. If you're excited for this one, make sure you drop a like and you subscribe down below, especially if you want more of these kind of episodes instead of the usual Dynasty or franchise episodes. We'll do a couple of these one-offs if that's what you want to see. But we'll go through the brackets individually every single game and see what happens. As first things, though, is we got to take a look at the 12-team brackets. And just in case you need a little reminder, here is what the bracket looks like. And we'll go through the first round first. Texas and Clemson, Ohio State, Tennessee, Penn State, SMU, and then Notre Dame, Indiana, with all Oregon, Georgia, Boise State, and Arizona State all getting byes, as the first round games are at the home campus of the lower seed, so you get a little bit of home field advantage there. So we'll go through all four games, starting off with the first one, the Battle of Indiana. We're going to head down to South Bend, where the Notre Dame Fighting Irish will play host to the Indiana Hoosiers, as Notre Dame only had one loss on the season to Northern Illinois, which is a very strange one if you look at in hindsight, but they've gotten this far to the playoff. In Indiana, you'll love to see the Hoosiers make the playoffs. They also only had a one loss to Ohio State. As we get into this game, the Hoosiers taking a very early lead, 23-10, makes it 23-17 going into the half, and Indiana continues to hold serve, now up by 19 points going into the fourth quarter. And Notre Dame makes it close. 5 points separates the two teams, but Indiana would hold on and win the first game of the playoff, 46-38. I am doing the first round on 15-minute quarters, by the way, as the Irish fall at home to Indiana. So not only does the Hoosiers make the playoff, they win the first round game. Keyshawn Williams went huge, 3 touchdowns, 9 catches, 209 yards. Lots of offense, but the Hoosiers jumped out to an early lead. And despite his 21-point quarter by Notre Dame, it never looked back. Now let's head to Happy Valley. The Penn State Nittany Lions are in the playoff. They finally reached this point. It had to take them expanding to 12 teams to get here. But they're in the playoff nonetheless, and they play home in the first round to SMU, who lost a nail-biter in the ACC championship game. In my opinion, rightfully in the playoff. As let's get into it with Penn State jumping out to a 14-7 lead to begin the first quarter. But SMU quickly fires back, and they take a lead, and going into the intermission is tied at 17. So who will pull away in the second half? Penn State drives down and scores. Heading into the fourth, SMU will counter. Penn State will score. SMU will counter. And they'll kick a field goal with less than 2 minutes left and win the game. So the Mustangs not only make the playoff, they win the first round game, proving that they deserve to be here, while Penn State continues to struggle in big games. So SMU, led by Jordan Hudson, 7 catches, 117 yards, and a touchdown, are able to take care of Penn State in a pretty back-and-forth affair before the Mustangs beat the Nittany Lions. The third game of the first round will go to Texas, where the Longhorns will play host to the ACC champions in the Clemson Tigers. Texas lost in overtime in the SEC championship game to Georgia. Now looking back to beat Clemson, who have made the playoffs, squeaking in as that conference champion as the final seed at number 12. But you can't always sleep on a team that has pedigree like they do in the past. Texas jumps out first with a field goal, but Clemson takes a pretty big lead up by double digits as we get ready to go into the half. Clemson still holding, but it is tied. Texas answers going into the intermission. And again, another back-and-forth game here in the first round. It is a shootout as well here in Texas, tied at 41. Clemson goes up at 48. It's tied at 48, but Clemson will kick the game-winning field goal for the second straight game. The Tigers kick a field goal as time expires to upset Texas 51-48. So Clemson, they get in and they win. Klubnik's 6 touchdown passes, 439 yards. Now I also realize that these are very high-scoring games. It was at this point where I decided after the first round, I am going to take it down to 10-minute quarters. But before we get to there, let's do the last game of the first round. Ohio State will play host in their first round matchup, as they will draw crowd here. Despite losing to Michigan up in Columbus, they play the Tennessee Volunteers. Now, every road team has won this first round so far in the playoff, which is funny because it's home field advantage. And Tennessee looking to continue that trend. They lead 10-0 coming out of the first quarter. And they go into the half. Not only 10-0, it's now 17-7. Tennessee is taking it out to Ohio State. They do bring it in within a score. But the Volunteers comfortably, even though it gets close, Ohio State does take the lead. But Tennessee takes it right back and wins. So despite that little bit in the fourth quarter from the Buckeyes, the Volunteers do win. And every single road team wins in the first round. If that happens in real life, that would be pretty crazy. But nonetheless, the Volunteers are moving on one step closer to getting back to the Natty. Yomieva is player of the game. Very interesting stat line to get player of the game, 235 yards and 1 touchdown. But Ohio State does fall to the Volunteers. And here's a look at our bracket through the first round. We now have Arizona State versus Clemson in the Peach Bowl, Oregon versus Tennessee in the Rose Bowl. And in the Fiesta Bowl, it'll be Boise State and SMU, and the Sugar Bowl, Georgia and Indiana. Again, all the higher seeds went on the road and won. So let's not waste any time. Let's get into the second round now at some neutral sites. We'll start off with SMU and Boise State, as they will kick us off here in the second round. Two teams I'm excited to have made the playoff. They will play in Arizona at State Farm Stadium for the Fiesta Bowl. Boise State, the 3 seed, led by Ashton Gentry, while SMU did just win their first round matchup as they take an early lead here. Again, back on 10-minute quarters here for the second round and beyond. Won a little bit of low-scoring games, but I didn't stop the scoring from some of these teams. SMU already had 21 points into the half. Boise State with only 9. It seems like Gentry getting a little shut down here for the Broncos. SMU came in with a game plan, and they execute it to perfection. They win 35-30 over the Boise State Broncos, and SMU's journey will continue. Unfortunately, the Group of 5 Cinderella underdog team that everybody's cheering for will drop as Jennings leads the Mustangs with 5 touchdown passes and 216 passing yards into the semifinals. 35-30 was your final score. Next up, we'll head out to the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, where Arizona State and Clemson will meet in this battle in the Georgia Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. Well, Arizona State, the winners of the Pac-12. Clemson, the winners of the ACC. Some people think Clemson should have got the 4 seed. Well, now they have a chance to settle it as they take on Arizona State. As Clemson does get the first touchdown of the game, Arizona State does answer right back, tied up at the end of a quarter. Clemson starts to score early in the second, and we're tied at their second as well, 14-14. Both teams scoring touchdowns in each quarter, but Arizona State finally takes 2 in the third, 28-21. Now tied up at 28 apiece coming into the final minute. It's a close one, but Arizona State will win it in a wild finish, 34-38. Again, the scoring on full display. And the Arizona State Sun Devils proving that they should have been the 4 seed. Finally, a team that is favored wins in the college football playoff. Cam Scabetto had 4 touchdowns on the ground for the Sun Devils, and they're able to take care of the Clemson Tigers, a feisty team that I'm happy to see go. Now we go to the Rose Bowl, where Oregon, the number 1 seed in the college football playoff, they will play host to Tennessee out in Pasadena, one of the richest traditions in college football, as it'll be the Oregon Ducks and the Tennessee Volunteers going out. A lot of Vols made the trip out to California. You can see all the orange, in the stands, as we'll see if we have another upset on our hands. But Oregon does lead after a quarter, 7-3. Tennessee, though, now up 17-7. Oregon does get a touchdown, only down by 3 to begin the half, and they double dip and get another touchdown coming out of the intermission. And now Oregon up by 11, going to the final minutes of the fourth quarter, and they will take care of business. So it was scary at first, but eventually the Ducks wake up, and the number 1 seed will get the win over the Tennessee Volunteers. 31-20 is your final, as Oregon Ducks proving that home field advantage does indeed matter. As Tez Johnson, 3 touchdowns. I know they didn't have home field advantage, but they were definitely a little bit closer, and they were more familiar with the Rose Bowl. But the Ducks win 31-20 over the Tennessee Volunteers. And we'll go to the final game of the second round of the playoff, down Georgia and Indiana, and a very interesting clash here in New Orleans at the All-State Sugar Bowl, the Caesars Superdome. The Bulldogs are going to get back to national championship caliber. They will play Indiana, but you can never sleep on the Hoosiers as Georgia jumps out to an early 13-0 lead after a quarter, and the Bulldogs currently out in front looking to overmatch the Big Ten counterparts in Indiana, 20-13 at the half. Georgia gets a field goal going into the fourth quarter, but Indiana will rally. They'll take the lead 34-30. Can the Hoosiers hold on? And they do. Indiana comes back in the fourth quarter and upsets the Bulldogs 34-30. Your upset of the tournament so far. Indiana is heading to the semifinals. Curtis Rourke, 4 touchdown passes, 268 yards to lead his Hoosiers over Georgia, knocking them out, which sets a very interesting semifinal. We'll have Oregon and Arizona State at the top side, but in the bottom side, SMU and Indiana in the Orange Bowl. One of those two teams will be in your national championship. We'll start with that game first here at Hard Rock Stadium in the Orange Bowl. Indiana wearing the home uniforms. Didn't think they would be a lower-seeded team in a matchup, but here we are playing the SMU Mustangs. One of these two teams will fight for a national championship, but one of these Cinderellas has to come and die here in Miami. Will it be SMU or will it be Indiana? Both teams riding up pretty shocking upsets in the quarterfinal as both teams take the field with one more game to go before they are in the national championship. SMU, Indiana here at Hard Rock Stadium in the Capital One Orange Bowl. Let's not waste any more time. Figure out who will be the first team in the national championship. As we'll start off here with Indiana with a field goal. SMU answers right back to in the quarter. And this one's a pretty close game, back and forth. Still a one-score game at the half. As Indiana, like they've done all season, all playoff long, they continue to fight. And for the first time, we have a game go into overtime. SMU would kick a field goal, but Indiana would score a touchdown, and the Hoosiers are going to the national championship. Indiana has run the gauntlet since the first round. They have punched their ticket with a bowl of oranges into the college football playoff. It's crazy to think that Indiana has made it to this point, but here we are. Tyson Lawson had 89 yards and a touchdown to be the player of the game for the Hoosiers. He is your Orange Bowl MVP. As Indiana, they just continue to win. Now, who will face Indiana? We'll find out here in the last of the semifinal matchups in the Cotton Bowl Classic. We're in Jerry's world. The number one and probably favorites, Oregon Ducks, who are undefeated this year, will put all of that on the line for a spot in the national championship, as the Ducks, though, will play Arizona State, a team that has been feisty all year long. They beat Clemson in the last round to prove that it deserved to get to this point. And one of these two teams will meet up with Indiana in the final game of the season. We're here at AT&T Stadium. It's Arizona State. It's Oregon in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl as the final game in the semis kicks off right now. As we'll see scoring early, Arizona State draws first blood, but Oregon counters to take the lead at the end of a quarter. They continue to hold on to that lead here. But Arizona State does take the lead at half, 17-14. Oregon, though, answers with a touchdown outside the break, and they get another one here, and another one, 35-17. The Ducks pull away and knock off Arizona State. The undefeated Oregon Ducks continue on to the national championship. Final score here, 35-17. Arizona's season comes to an end, but Dylan Gabriel with 3 touchdowns is your Cotton Bowl MVP. As now we know for sure who will be the national championship finals. It is Oregon, it is Indiana. 2 Big Ten teams making it to the finals here January 20th. And only one of these two teams can make a national champion. Will it be the undefeated Oregon Ducks, or will it be the Cinderella of all Cinderellas to this point in the Indiana Hoosiers? A lot of people thought the Hoosiers were a fraud. Well, they've knocked off some talented teams. They beat Notre Dame. They beat Georgia. They just knocked off SMU, and now they're in the national championship. Do they have one more upset underneath their wings, or will the Ducks continue to soar here, coming off of a couple of big wins in their own to make it to the national championship? But both teams are on the field. It's the final game of the college football playoff here at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Indiana and Oregon in Atlanta. Who will walk away with the trophy? Let's kick it off right here in the national championship. The first team to score will be Oregon. They get a touchdown, but Indiana quickly answers back to in the first quarter. Oregon, again, with a 7-point lead, now a 10, the Ducks. But Indiana, they're going to hang in there. So they've done all playoff long. Ducks now up by 10 in the third quarter, but Indiana answers with a 14-point lead now, though, for the Ducks and the Hoosiers. Do they have enough in the tank? They do not. Indiana will fall, and the Oregon Ducks are your college football national champions. The number 1 seed gets it done in the end. A very hectic playoff. But Oregon, the favorite since the beginning, do get the win, 31-17. And for the first time in college football history, we have a 16-0 team as the Ducks run the gauntlet. They don't lose a single game all year long, and they get to lift that trophy that has eluded their program for so long. Congratulations to the Oregon Ducks. The fans are celebrating here in Atlanta. We got a little bit of a wave going in the crowd. Dylan Gabriel, your college football national champion, MVP. We'll see if that leads him to the NFL. 3 touchdowns and 378 yards. The Ducks get to celebrate in the final scenes of the season. And that'll do it for this one. We get an end to the playoff. Oregon gets it. We'll see if that actually happens in real life. I doubt it, but it was fun to watch nonetheless. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you drop a like and you subscribe down below, especially if you want more of these kind of episodes, or if you want more Dynasty, or if you want more franchise content. But this is Mr. Rob, and I'll see you in the next one.